Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar with BioStrata for our Life Science Marketing Group session. The topic today is how life science marketers can leverage automation to achieve more with less. If you could just put all your microphones on mute, and also if you can ask questions via the chat, we'll answer them through the talk and at the end. And now I can hand over to Paul Avery from BioStrata. I hope you enjoy the session.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. And thanks very much for having me here today. Big thanks to the One Nucleus team for that. Good morning and welcome to all of you. Today, we're going to talk about marketing automation. Maybe not the sexiest topic in the world. Maybe you didn't leap out of bed this morning thinking, yeah, I'm going to talk about marketing automation. But I hope over the next 30 minutes or so, we will help to show and to discuss and to look at actually why marketing automation is a sexy topic and something that you can leverage to really help you achieve more with less, get better results, and spend more of your time on the exciting creative work and perhaps less of your time on the more process-driven work that these days we can use software tools to help do some of the work for us. So with that, some very brief intros first. Who am I? Well, my name is Paul. I am the CEO of BioStrata. We are a specialist life science marketing agency, and we help clients increase brand awareness, generate more sales leads, and nurture leads into customers. And some of the projects that we work on with clients do include marketing automation. So if you've got more interest in who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at www.biostratamarketing.com. But other than that, I'm going to dive straight into the topic. This is being recorded, so you'll be able to get access to the recording afterwards. And if you need access to the slides, you can always contact our team to request them. So why is this topic important? Well, for me, this is an essential topic because I think within the context of the world that we live in at the moment, marketing automation has a key role to play. And why is that? Because the expectations placed upon marketers are ever growing. And if you in your role feel like the senior leadership team of your business is expecting you to create a wonderful, amazing marketing machine and massively awesome marketing output, then you're not alone. And if you feel like the budget that you've got to do that is actually more akin to building something like this tiny house, then you're also not alone. So I look at the pressures that we're all under as life science marketers, and we're expected to be able to get these great results, and expectations are growing, you know, as customers go through more of their buying process online on their own. Marketing has an ever greater role to play in that process, but I don't see budgets and things scaling with those growing expectations. And so one of the tools that we can use is marketing automation to help us get more done with less. So what we're going to cover today, well, the first thing we're going to look at is what marketing automation is. We're going to look at some of the benefits of marketing automation. We're also going to look at some of the drawbacks. We're going to look at some of the common applications of automation, and we're going to look at common pitfalls to watch for when you implement your automation setup. We're also going to finally have a little look at how you would get started with marketing automation. So there are the few things that we're going to cover over the next 30 minutes or so. So what is marketing automation? Well, I quite like this quote from HubSpot. So marketing automation uses software to automate monotonous marketing work. Marketing departments can automate repetitive tasks such as email marketing, social media posting, and even ad campaigns, not just for the sake of efficiency, but also to provide a more personalized experience for customers. So when we're thinking about marketing automation at BioStrata, this is the quote that we have in our minds when we're working with our clients. What about the benefits of marketing automation? Well, I guess the first one that instantly springs to mind is to save time and money, because if people's time costs money, then anything that we can automate, that we can use systems and tools to process through, is going to free those people up to focus on other tasks that require the creativity and ingenuity of human beings. Marketing automation can also help us improve our decision making by allowing us to crunch data sets that are too large or too sort of fiddly for humans to do, and also to be able to allow us to draw insights from those data sets by surfacing possible issues or opportunities before we might see them as humans. A good one here is there's a plugin for HubSpot that will actually surface which of your blog posts or your landing pages are underperforming and give you some suggestions as to why that might be, so that you can go in and optimize them. And if you're running many campaigns and have been over a number of years, you might quickly gather 50, 100, 200 landing pages. And so manually trying to figure out where to spend your time to improve your performance would be challenging. But if the tool surfaces up, hey, don't worry about 199 of these, focus on this one first and make these changes, that's obviously super helpful. Thinking about that level of complexity, that's also another area where marketing automation adds a lot of benefits. There are a number of things that we might want to do as marketers that if we had to do them manually, it would just be impossible. And an example of this might be triggering an email workflow of 5, 6, 7 emails based on different behaviors that a prospect may take on your website, such as filling in a form, but also changing their flow through that workflow depending on future behaviors that they take. That would just be laborious and very prone to error if you try to manage that sort of manually and just doing it yourself with trying to keep track of where everybody was and in the workflow and stuff like that. The other thing that we can do at scale, which is not easy to do without automation, is to personalize our marketing. There's a number of different ways to do that, and we'll take a look at some of those today. But again, if you needed to try and do that manually, surfacing customized content to different people based on their location or whether they're a customer or a prospect or what topics they're interested in, it just wouldn't be possible to do it manually. And then the final element is really scaling up your marketing efforts. So when you start to build out and add more campaigns, or if you're looking at moving into new markets or launching new products, we're going to have more and more work to do. And the more that you can automate, the easier it's going to be to scale. And the classic that I always think of here is running Google ad programs. Now, Google ad programs at their most effective, you would have a customized landing page for each campaign and potentially even for each keyword group. Well, what do you do if you've got 30 keyword groups? Do you go in and manually create 30 landing pages from scratch, or do you use smart content to be able to automatically populate those landing pages based on the keywords from your ad campaigns? And then, of course, if that scales up to 100 keyword groups, 200 keyword groups, maybe you're marketing and using Google Ads for 1,000 products, that becomes impossible. But if you're using automation, you can scale much faster. So that sounds awesome. Let's all go do it. We don't even need to continue the webinar. But actually, of course, there's always a yin and there's always a yang. And in this case, there are drawbacks to marketing automation. I think one of the key ones is that there is a time investment required upfront in order to be able to build out your workflows, think through your logic, and actually build the automated systems that are going to take on some of the load. In addition, there are a number of tasks where automation is not suitable. A common one is if you're not actually doing that task very often, then it might not be worth the time investment to actually automate it. There are also certain tasks that are just better handled by a human because we are able to problem solve in real time in a way that automation and even the early AI aspects of automation are not quite able to do yet. Making the decision to automate aspects of your marketing is often driven by scale. So if you're not looking to scale your marketing, if you know you're only ever going to be looking to generate, I don't know, 5 to 10 leads a month from your website, do you really need to build out a number of complex workflows to manage those leads? The answer is probably no, because you just won't get the return on investment over time that you had to from the effort that you put in to build it in the first place. Automation also requires specific expertise, because doing this properly and ensuring you don't have any errors and ensuring you get the results that you need requires expertise and experience. It can reduce human interaction. So I'm sure we've all received those automated emails that try and pretend that they're not automated, and we absolutely know they are. That is likely to annoy customers and prospects if they get too many emails that just feel heavily automated. And so it's important to get that right balance between automated activities and communications with prospects and customers, but also ensuring you have enough humanism in those interactions at the right stages in the sales process to ensure it doesn't feel like that customer's just dealing with a robot all the time. In some aspects where you may introduce automation into your marketing process, you may need to purchase new tools. And when using these new tools, there's often an element of test and learn. And I think this is one of the critical things about marketing automation is your V1 process, the workflows you set up, the things that you build, they won't be final. So if it doesn't quite work as you expected, don't beat yourself up. I think that's absolutely normal to implementing marketing automation, and it's about testing and learning over time, and then just improving how your workflows work or the different aspects of your automation that you're marketing based on the data that you are gathering. The other thing about automation is it doesn't fix process issues, it's just software. It helps to automate and achieve at scale what you would normally do manually. So you have to have really strong, robust processes in place first before you try to automate them. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit more detail later on. It also requires oversight because, as I've mentioned, it can get complicated pretty quickly and things can go wrong. So it's really important that we don't set and forget our automation workflows, that we actually keep an eye on them to make sure nothing untoward or unexpected is happening, or that they haven't suddenly turned themselves off for some strange reason that we don't know, and that we think customers are being contacted, but they're not really. So that oversight's critical. That obviously requires time and effort as well. And then having that tendency to have this power, like with great power comes great responsibility. So we should work really hard not to overuse our marketing automation tools and automate every single part and every single customer conversation, because ultimately in the end, we're going to lead to that sort of I'm dealing with robots effect, and we don't really want every interaction that a prospect or a customer has with our brand to feel too heavily automated. So they're the drawbacks. Lots and lots of benefits, some key drawbacks to be aware of. And I think in many aspects, there's a Goldilocks zone where it's not going to be too much work to set it up and you know that you're going to get the value from doing it. So with that in mind, let's move into some of the common use cases of marketing automation. I suspect that many of you will be aware of a number of these, but hopefully there'll be a couple of cool, interesting ones that you haven't seen before. So the first thing that springs to mind for many people when they think about marketing automation is email lead nurturing. And indeed, this is an area that marketing automation tools really excel, as I described earlier, because what you can do is you can send email workflows to prospects and customers based on certain triggers. And those triggers can include things like filling in a form to download an ebook, submitting a customer service request, downloading a brochure, requesting to speak to a sales rep. All of these things we can automate communications off the back of. And for a lot of those prospects that are near the top of the funnel that might be in education mode, we can keep feeding them relevant content based on the content that they've consumed in the past. And of course, we can do all of that automatically and at scale. Another key, another key use of marketing automation is to actually use dates to trigger those email workflows, but also there's a number of other really cool and clever ways to use dates to trigger action. So here's an example I really like with a company called Handwritten that will integrate with a lot of tools like HubSpot and Marketo. And what this allows you to do is to set a date property for a contact. It might be their birthday. It might be the date that they became a customer. It might be some other key date in their lives that through the marketing, sales, or customer service process you become aware of, that you can then trigger the creation of a handwritten note that is then sent to them by snail mail just to make them feel special. And what I love about this is it's all entirely automatic, but then the notes that they get are handwritten and feel really like it makes them feel a bit special that the company that, you know, their supplier would go to the effort to send them that. So that's a really clever way to use trigger actions. Of course, you can do that with birthday cards as well. And to a certain extent, I think I never thought I'd say this in a marketing automation talk, but imagination is really the only limit in terms of clever ways of linking up unexpected tools and doing things at scale that you can then automate. Another common use of marketing automation is to drive chatbot interactions. I'm sure everybody's experienced this in their lives, especially in the B2C world. This is becoming quite common. So if you have questions or if you have a problem, you can go on to the supplier's website. And because the company has built logical workflows and automation based on common questions, you can actually ask the chatbot questions and it can surface answers to common questions without the need for human involvement. And then when it gets completely stumped and it doesn't know the answer, it will push you to a human sales rep or a human customer service rep. So this works really, really well. Again, I think this is the type of thing that absolutely has to be handled with care. If you've ever tried to use one of the chatbots associated with a bank, for example, you will find that, at least in my experience, they can't answer any of your questions. They say, oh, we don't understand. Can you ask that question in a different way? And in the end, they just send you to a human anyway. So this is one of those where great power comes great responsibility, because ultimately, I think if it doesn't work very well, it's going to annoy customers rather than help them. And as much as we want to be able to automate things to make our lives easier, we need to add value for our customers in our automation. And I think chatbots is one of those areas that you can quickly tip the wrong way if you're not careful. Another thing we can do with marketing automation is to personalize website content. So I really like this example here from Very, where they knew that Nikki, in this case, had come back to their website. They were using other triggers to help personalize the content. And in this case, it was based on the weather in Nikki's IP address, so Nikki's location at that time, to show a different message, a different sort of soft ad around what type of things Nikki might be interested in buying. And this is obviously a very B2C example, but again, it's just to get that creative juice flowing. What cool stuff could we do personalizing content on our website based on what we know about our visitors, whether or not they visited before, for example, a simple welcome back, or other things based on content that we know they've consumed, forms they've filled in, whether they're a customer or not, all those types of things. Another common and fairly simple application of automation is to more easily schedule content for publishing, so blog posts and social media posts. But I think one of the cool things that you can do with automation systems is you can schedule your blog post to go live, but you can also schedule automatically social posts to then be published to your profiles on, say, Twitter and LinkedIn, with a short summary of that blog post that's perhaps been automatically generated based on the meta description. And again, this allows you to do all of these things automatically and just saves you time. In some cases, I've even seen companies trigger off automated newsletter emails based on either the next blog that goes live is automatically shared with the subscribers via email, or maybe even will compile the last 3 stories and share that as an email newsletter at the end of the month, and even automate certain aspects of that. Other things you can do is gathering customer feedback at scale. So whether that's customer loyalty programs, NPS, these types of things can be really helpful. One cool thing you can do is, if you are doing lots of net promoter score surveys or other types of customer satisfaction surveys, you can create workflows that, for those people that indicate they're very happy with their service, you can then follow up with another email that asks them to leave a review, either on a review site that's important to your business or something more commonly used like Google reviews, for example. And that's a great way of gathering feedback, but then also asking all the happy people for reviews, because of course it wouldn't be appropriate to go necessarily and ask people who'd scored 1 out of 10 to give you a favorable review on a review site. So again, that's quite a nice series of workflows that you can put in place quite quickly to gather that feedback and gather more reviews. Another area that I think is only ever expanding with the use of automation is in managing paid ads at scale. So a lot of programmatic advertising relies on this in terms of automating the bidding process across multiple channels for the different audiences that you're targeting. But even more so with the emerging and growing power of AI, these systems are now even getting the capability to do things like A, B, C, D test your ad copy and then choose the winning variants to show in your ads to get you more clicks, more conversions, more customers. There is even suggestions that it might even be possible to start even changing the creative automatically that goes in some of that display advertising. And for those of you who have experience running Google Ads, you'll have noticed that now Google Ads is based on a system where you give it some suggested headlines and some suggested body text for the ads, and it goes and mixes and matches those and tests them on prospects based on all the other ads it's ever run, not just for you, but every other company ever, and tries to make those decisions for you. You can't actually easily stipulate, I want an ad with this headline, this subtext, these links. Now it does a lot of that automatically for you, for good or ill. The other thing you can do is improve sales. This is one's quite specific to those working in e-commerce, but a common loss of revenue is when people put things in their sales carts, but they don't actually complete the purchase process. You yourselves in your B2C lives probably have popped something into a cart on, I don't know, Amazon or maybe an online clothing store, and then received an email 24 hours later saying, hey, you've left something in your cart, don't forget to purchase it. And then maybe even a day later, another email that has a 10% discount code just to try and nudge you over the line. And by automating this type of cart abandonment communication, you can actually drive quite strong increases in revenue by nudging people to come back and finish their purchase. Another thing you can do that can be combined with all of these is actually to start automating internal comms and notifications. So a classic here would be a new lead is generated and their IP suggests they're in a certain location like EMEA or maybe USA or whatever it may be. And then you can automatically notify the sales rep in that area. So in terms of really helping with marketing and sales alignment and helping ensure that the transitions between new leads on the website and how they get over to sales is managed as quickly and effectively as possible, you can start to automate some of those things. And you can also make those decisions over time based on how hot or cold those leads are. So I'm not suggesting that every time you generate any lead, you should automatically let the sales rep know, because that's not always appropriate. But you can use different triggers and different mechanisms to notify different people based on what's just happened. Maybe it's a customer service request or a new lead, etc. So again, that helps to make sure that no leads get lost in the ether, and it just saves everybody time and effort. Related to that then is also bringing some aspect of lead scoring to that. So if we're going to push leads over to sales, how do we know if they are going to be sales ready and if they're going to be well accepted by the sales team, because they're actually going to turn into opportunities and sales? Well, using predictive lead scoring models in order to be able to rank those leads and choose if a lead has a certain score, it goes over to the sales rep. And if it doesn't, it goes into a lead nurturing email workflow, gets easier and more sophisticated when we're able to automate aspects of the process. We can also do things like automating customer onboarding. So this is a very appropriate for customers that have software solutions and can be very important for encouraging stickiness, especially if the first conversion point for a new customer is a free demo. But it can be just as useful, I think, for physical products by sending people reminders. So say you sell an instrument, sending a reminders about when they might need to contact a service rep for a 12-month service, or it might include things like tips and tricks for how to get the instrument set up correctly, or common applications that you might not have tried with your instrument yet, or sharing case studies from other users, all these other things to get people excited about their new instrument and proactively using it. And again, obviously, if your instrument is dependent on things like reagents and consumables, the more that those customers use those tools, then the more reagents and consumables they're going to need to buy from you. So all of these things can come to feed into not just delighting customers by giving them all the help and support they need to get started, but also building that relationship between your company and them, and getting them using whatever it is that they've bought from you so that they love it, they use it a lot, and ideally they'll need to buy more. Another one that I think is a growing emerging power, but has to be used carefully, is using automation to monitor social media comments about your brand and then automating a response. So this is a tool I wasn't actually aware of until we put together this presentation. Really exciting tool that monitors company brand mentions on Twitter and then automatically assesses the sentiment, and based on the words that are used in that comment or that post, can then automate a response either as a direct message or as a comment on that post. So an example would be someone goes online to complain about your company or your product because it sucks, and they're like, oh, I couldn't get it to work, it's rubbish, I hate company X. Then you can actually get in touch with those people really quickly with an automatic message to say, we're really, really sorry to hear of your experience. We really want to help. Could you please contact customer service on this email address so that we can get in there and fix this for you? And it allows you to do it in a really, really quick way. Of course, the downside to it is it's automated. So if you don't get your criteria absolutely spot on for what types of replies it should do when, then you're in danger of maybe saying the wrong things at the wrong time. So it does have to be used thoughtfully and carefully, but it could really help to provide that level of social media monitoring and response at scale. Another thing that marketers don't like talking about, quite understandably, because it certainly makes things more complicated, but that's very, very important for protecting everybody's privacy, is managing GDPR. And a number of things that many of the automation systems have built into them now makes managing GDPR that much easier. So by switching on the GDPR tools, you can then manage the opt-ins and maintenance of your contacts and providing unsubscribe options and all things much, much easier. And then you can be more confident that you're compliant with many of the things that you need to do. Another really cool emerging use of automation and AI is to effectively surface market and customer insights and trends. So one example is this tool Crayon you can see on the left, which offers a more informed picture of what your rivals are up to. So it gathers data from 100 different types across millions of sources. So it keeps track of what your competitors are up to, including changes to their products and their messages on their website, if they change their executive team, if they share press releases and news about their company. That's pretty cool. It also tries to really sort through the noise and surface things that are going to be especially useful to you in your marketing and sales efforts, which I think is pretty cool. And then on the right here, we have Adobe Experience Cloud, which has a number of tools to help you track customer behavior and surface customer insights in real time at scale. So again, if you've got lots of customers and you're trying to figure out, well, what content is best for engaging prospects and encouraging them to sell, what web pages do customers typically sell, you know, what typically visit, what actions do people who don't buy typically take? And just really trying to unpick what is a good prospect, where should we invest our time, how do we close this type of prospect into a customer? And by trying to monitor as much of the buying process for the customer as possible, this is how tools like Adobe Experience Cloud can surface those insights. So everybody breathe. Loads of cool things that we can do with marketing automation. Let's go set it up. Well, before we do, there are a number of pitfalls to marketing automation that we have to be aware of before we get started. So the first one is not having an implementation plan. If we just go and buy a marketing automation tool and then log in and go, right, cool, right, where's the automate button? I know none of us think it's that simple, but sadly it can be a lot more complex than that. So having a plan about what you want to achieve, what processes you're going to automate and all this good stuff is absolutely essential. Another thing that we need to be thinking about is how we're going to integrate our data sources. So a lot of companies have different tools for different things. They might have Zendesk for customer service, they might have Salesforce for sales CRM management, and they might have MailChimp for email marketing, and they might have, I don't know, Unbounce for their landing pages. So what we really need is to make sure that all of the data is being fed into the system so that we're able to take use of that data to do more powerful things. As I was listing those tools, you're probably thinking that sounds like a lot of tools, and that already was. And in some cases, companies can have 10, 15, 20, or even hundreds of tools in their marketing and sales tech stack. And that obviously just makes it much harder to integrate everything and to have your automations work effectively. Another pitfall of marketing automation implementation is when we think, we have this cool new tool, let's go automate everything. But as we talked about a little bit earlier, not everything should be automated. So we have to be very diligent in ensuring we focus our time on automating those things where it provides the most value to us and to customers. And then setting and forgetting, because this will need maintenance, bits will break, things will happen not quite as you plan them to, and you'll need to keep an eye on all of the things, all of the automations you set up so that you can go in and tweak them, especially during the first week or so after you implement them, and then ideally for each automation workflow or whatever you've built, you'll be able to spend a little bit less time paying attention to them once you've ironed out a few of the kinks. And then the last thing, well, not last thing, but a thing related to setting and forgetting is also ensuring that we're measuring performance. So are we getting the better outcomes that we expected from implementing this automation? A classic here would be cart abandonment. We built this workflow to try and get people to come back and make their purchase. Is a decent percentage of those people doing that? And if not, how can we change the workflow to get a better result? And then the last thing would be really overusing automation and really starting to spam people, because ultimately, whilst we want to save ourselves time and effort, and it's amazing we can scale our marketing with these powerful tools that make it easy to do lots of things without having to invest much of our own time, we need to provide a great experience for our customers. And that means that we shouldn't be sending them emails all the time and notifications all the time and social media messages all the time. We have to get that balance right and not overuse the tools. So with all of that in mind, how would we go about getting started? Well, there's 8 key components to this. They're in some sort of order, but to be honest, sometimes you'll do one before the other. So the order is less important here than making sure you've done all of these things. And the first one we'll talk about here briefly is setting your goals and documenting your plan. Knowing what you want to achieve and understanding what done looks like, and then building a plan to get there. It's important in pretty much anything that we might do as marketers, and it's absolutely essential when implementing automation. Identify opportunities for automation in existing and new processes. So this is where most of the gold is going to be found, and I'm going to talk specifically about processes in a minute. I know it's a bit of a dry topic, but it's those little steps in your processes that you can automate instead of doing them manually that are really going to save you time. And 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there for something you're doing 3 times a day or 5 times a week quickly adds up. Make sure you document those processes before you automate them. When you come to sit into your tool and you're like, right, I'm going to automate X. I'm going to automate our press release distribution process. Oh, crumbs, what steps do I even need to automate? Is the process written down anywhere? You can get stuck very quickly and easily. So it's very important to document those processes before you automate them. Define clear metrics for success for each of the things that you're working on, because what you really want to know is did it deliver a return on investment? If I need to invest 10 hours setting this automation workflow up, do I expect it to save me at least 10 hours over the next 3 months, for example? And then have a plan for integrating the tools that you have already and the data sources you have already, and identify new tools that you might need. So if you want to do something cool like handwritten notes, you need to find a tool like Handywritten in order to be able to integrate with your existing tech stack in order to be able to do that. You will probably depending on the size of your organization, need to inform key stakeholders and get buy-in. Commonly, this might be IT, but it's probably going to be the sales team as well, because if the automation system's working really well, it's going to help align marketing and sales and help both teams be more effective with their time and get better results. But of course, you need to bring them along on this journey. You need to make them feel part of this journey and like they can shape the automations that you're going to build, so they're excited about the results that you can get together, rather than saying, we do it like this now, which is likely to be met with resistance. We've talked about this a little bit already, but I really think having a process in place where you know how you're going to test, check, measure, and iterate the automations you set up is key. So you know that in the first 24 hours that an automation goes live, we're going to monitor it manually like a hawk. And then after a week, we're going to check for any errors. And then after a month, we're going to check for performance in terms of, I don't know, more leads becoming customers or whatever it may be. But knowing what that process is going to be very, very helpful for letting you know if you won or not. And then finally, having someone lead the project, having someone who's fully accountable for it doesn't mean they do all the work. It just means that when we need to know where we are in the process and are things done or not done, we have someone that we can go to who is the champion and is the main accountable person for the project. So they are the key components that you need to do before you get started with automation. And I just wanted to talk very briefly about process, because I know it can be a bit of a dull subject, but this is a process that we were mapping out within our agency for a press release service that we have called the Life Science Newswire, which is like a business wire for life science companies. And we were mapping out end to end everything that happens between when a customer first makes a request, we send out a press release, and then we send out the report. And I was thinking that's probably about 7 steps. But by the time we'd actually mapped out at a granular level all the steps that it took, you can see this is what it looked like. A couple of things here. Loads and loads of opportunities for automation. I can't remember how many of these steps we automated in the end, but it was a large percentage. And if each of these steps is taking us 5 minutes each, well, we've just saved a lot of time. The other thing is, if we'd have tried to build the automation for this process without mapping it out first, we'd have forgotten steps, or we'd have had to like riff in real time. Oh, wait a minute, isn't there something else that needs to go there? And we'd have had to like try and build it a bit more Frankenstein on the fly, which is only just probably going to lead to errors and is going to lead to much more iterations needed over time, and is just going to make the whole thing more stressful than it needs to be. So mapping out those processes first just adds super amounts of value, loads of insight, because you'll see things where you're like, crumbs, do we really do it like that? Sometimes you can massively simplify what you're doing before you automate it, just by mapping out the process. So really, really helpful stuff. Having taken you through all of that, we have built a handy little tool. So it's an assessment tool to help you know if your company is ready to embark on a more proactive marketing automation journey. You can access it by visiting bit.ly/marketing auto tool, or by scanning the QR code that you can see on the screen. It covers a number of things that you'll have seen in this presentation. It gives you a score at the end, and if you choose to, we will also send you a customized report with recommendations specifically for you on what you should focus on next in order to start to build out marketing automation, save yourself time, save yourself effort, get better results, and focus more of your time on the fun, creative bits of marketing. So what have we talked about today? We've talked about marketing automation. It's pretty cool, might be a bit dry, but it's got a number of benefits that can make your lives better and easier, but that is not always appropriate, and that there can be a number of pitfalls to be aware of. We've talked about how there are a wide variety of applications and cool stuff that you can do with automation, not just the things that instantly come to mind like email lead nurturing. And we've also talked a bit about how successful implementation depends on having a rock solid plan. In terms of building that plan, you can use our assessment tool to help you do that. So hopefully that's been useful. In terms of next steps, here's some possible next steps for you to take back into your work this week: is identify where you are on your marketing automation journey, create a plan to get started, save time and effort get more done with less. And if you have any questions, you can get in touch with our team to learn more. And with that, I will thank you very, very much for your attention. I hope you found some of that useful, and I'll happily answer any questions that everybody has.
I can see there are a couple in the chat.
Let me open up the chat here, see what we've got. Okay. Excuse me. Right, question number one. Can you please explain the GDPR button and what is the scope of this tool? Who offers this button? So the GDPR button, that's a really good question. That's available in HubSpot. What it won't do is automatically populate things like your privacy policy. And I'm not a GDPR expert, so you should absolutely speak to legal experts on all this stuff. But what it will do is it will ensure that all of your forms are GDPR compliant. It's very clear to people what they're opting in for or not when they fill in a form. It'll also ensure that your cookie banners and everything work appropriately depending on how you set your GDPR settings. There's a few other aspects in terms of how it then manages where unsubscribe links can be found and how easy it is for people to unsubscribe from your communications. So I think that ends up being a useful tool. And HubSpot just introduced a cookie tracker. So in essence, you click a button, it tells you what cookies are running on your site, so that if you wanted to, you could actually provide that level of detail in your privacy policy and let all of your visitors know exactly what things you're tracking and what tools you're using on your site, and also what type of plugins and cookies they are in terms of whether they're functional or whether they gather user behavior data and all these types of things. I suspect that other automation tools have something similar. We're a HubSpot partner, so a lot of the examples today come from using HubSpot, and I do, as a team, we find that the easiest tool to use. So I would recommend checking out HubSpot and doing a bit of digging on the GDPR aspects to go into a bit more detail.
Paul, thank you very much
Yeah.
for your answer. That was me that I put forward that question. So yes, I was quite surprised to see a GDPR button. So I present my Data Trust, who we are specialized in providing GDPR compliances for life
Right.
sciences. So yeah, I was really surprised to just on a click of a button that you're compliant. But okay, so I understand that it is just to do with the website and
Yes.
users' data that you're getting onto your website, and does not cover, say, your privacy policy or your IT policy or
No.
other scopes.
No.
So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And thanks for that extra context, because I think it's what you say is critical, which is it will make it easier for you to ensure your website is compliant and has the necessary cookie banners and everything associated with your forms, but all the thinking stuff, right? All the policy, all the legal stuff, that has to be done by an expert, by people like yourselves, it sounds.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks for
Good
that.
stuff. Thanks for the question. Next question is, automation is heavily about process, as you mentioned. Are there tools to help you create the process? Oh, that's a great question. So I'm a bit of a software nerd, and if there is a software tool to play with, I will want to find it and have a play with it. And I looked for so many tools to help me with process mapping, but I am yet to find something more powerful than a whiteboard, honestly, in terms of getting people who understand the process at its granular level. These are the people who are probably doing the work day to day, and then mapping out collaboratively what the process is. It becomes super insightful when you've got two people who both do that thing. So in this case, the example I showed you was a press release distribution, who are then like, oh, I don't do that step, or I do that step, I do this step like this, but you do this step like that. And there's just so much value in that collaboration that honestly, whiteboarding it has been the most valuable approach that we've found. If you then want to digitize those, there's a number of sort of process mapping tools that are kind of like not graphing tools, but like figure creation tools. I think one that we use at BioStrata is called Miro, Miro, but there are also other free tools that can help you do that. But yeah, to actually do the process mapping, that's certainly the best system that I've seen. So hopefully that helps with that question. And then the last question is a really good one. Can you please give an example of how we can apply one of these tools in the life sciences? So I think for a number of those tools where scale is important, it helps to be a manufacturer of products and reagents where you've really got lots of different SKUs, and you've got lots of different market areas that you're operating in. Your customer database might be 10,000 people, and your prospect database might be 100,000 people, and then being able to automate sending emails and notifications to different customer segments at scale is absolutely critical. I think for companies that are CROs or CMOs, where they know what their top 20 customer base is, and they want to, they're all targeting big pharma, and they might not have massive contact databases, then some of the automation approaches that I've shown today might not be so appropriate. But there, of course, are still ways to communicate consistently with a buying center within a large pharma company, especially if you're looking to land and expand and move into different departments, for example, that you can use email nurturing to help with that. You can also use programmatic display and retargeting advertising to help with that as well. So I think some things are really appropriate for B2C, not so much for life sciences in some cases. Some things require us to have a lot of contacts and a lot of customers. And in other cases, it's just really about looking at your processes and the things that you do regularly that you could just benefit to automate. So one of the things we're looking at the moment is we don't get a huge amount of leads per month as a marketing agency. We probably get about, 30. And what we're looking to do is to build a self-service tool that helps people answer a lot of the questions they would typically want to ask of us during the sales process, because actually they come up again and again and again. And because people love to be able to answer those questions for themselves these days, rather than needing to necessarily speak to someone, giving them the option to do that through some sort of assessment tool versus having a phone call, was also offering the chance to speak with someone like me or someone on our team if they want to. So I think it's about looking at the things you do regularly and repeatably and thinking, how could I automate that? That's the last question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. If that's the last question, all that remains is to say thank you to Paul for that very comprehensive overview of marketing automation. Excellent. And thank you to all of you who dialed in today. I hope to see you soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.